When I was in high school, there was this kid who made everyone uneasy. I'll call him Darren, though that wasn't his real name. Even saying that fake one gives me chills. He was different. He never smiled, barely spoke, and walked around with this empty, distant stare, like he was always watching something none of us could see. Darren wore the same dark gray hoodie every single day. It looked ancient, like it hadn't been washed in years. He smelled faintly of damp earth and metal, and he always had those black sunglasses on, even indoors. At first, people thought he was just another weird loner, but then he started telling people that he wasn't human. He'd say, "I'm not from here. I'm a demon who collects souls." It was so absurd that most of us laughed it off. But after a while, the laughter stopped, because the things that followed weren't funny. Darren didn't have friends. He didn't hang out, didn't eat lunch with anyone, until one day, he started doing something bizarre. He would pick random people and tell them, "You're adopted." Apparently, that meant you were under his protection. He said if you were adopted by him, nothing could harm you, not even him. It was creepy, but I ended up being one of the few people he adopted. I didn't ask for it, and honestly, I didn't want it. But he followed his own strange logic, and arguing only made things worse. My friends used to joke about it all the time, especially Mia and Josh. They'd tease me, saying, "Hey, your demon boyfriend's watching again." I'd roll my eyes, pretending not to care. But sometimes, when I turned around in the hallway, I'd catch Darren staring at me from a distance, perfectly still, like a statue that blinked when you weren't looking. One afternoon, a few of us were hanging out behind the baseball field. It was me, Mia, Josh, and Lena. The sky was getting dark, and we were sitting on the dugout roof, talking about random stuff, until Darren's name came up. Josh started mocking him, repeating his real name over and over, 3 times exactly. And I swear, I'll never forget what happened next. We heard footsteps behind us. Before we could turn, Darren jumped onto the dugout from the back, holding a metal bat. His face was blank, expressionless. He didn't say a word. He just looked at each of us, one by one, and then stared straight at me. After a few seconds, he nodded and climbed back down without a sound. We laughed it off later, pretending it was just a weird coincidence. But deep down, none of us could explain how he knew exactly where we were. Weeks later, I was at Lena's house, just hanging out in her room. We were talking about random stuff, and once again, Darren's name came up, 3 times. 10 minutes later, we heard the front door open. Her mom went to check, and when we followed behind, our hearts nearly stopped. Darren was standing in the doorway. He looked directly at Lena's mom and said, "You called me." Her mom thought it was some strange joke and politely asked him to leave. But when he turned to walk away, I noticed his hoodie was dripping wet, and it hadn't been raining. That night, Lena and I couldn't stop talking about it. We realized the pattern. He always appeared after his name was said 3 times. We told everyone in our group to stop mentioning him. For months, nobody did, and everything went quiet. Until one night, it didn't. We were at Josh's house for a small get-together sitting out on the porch. The conversation drifted again, and Josh, ever the skeptic, said he didn't believe a word of it. He laughed and said, "Watch this," before saying Darren's real name 3 times in a row. Nothing happened. We all let out nervous chuckles, thinking maybe we'd imagined everything before. But then, the motion light in Josh's backyard flicked on. Standing at the edge of the light was a figure, small, hooded, completely still. Darren. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared at us for maybe 5 seconds, then turned and disappeared back into the darkness. We sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Josh was pale, shaking. He sent everyone home early that night. Months passed without any sign of him. I started thinking maybe he'd moved away, or worse. But one night proved me wrong. I was home alone. My parents were out of town, and it was raining hard. I had a friend over, a guy I just started seeing. At some point, his name came up again. He thought the story was hilarious and decided to say Darren's name 3 times, loudly, to summon him. The moment he finished, thunder shook the whole house. The lights flickered. I ran to the window, and there, standing in the rain at the end of my driveway, was a silhouette in a gray hoodie. He was looking right at my window. I froze. The guy with me said it was a prank or coincidence, but I knew better. When I blinked, the figure was gone. But then came a knock at the front door. Soft. 3 times. I didn't move. Neither of us did. After a minute of silence, I finally peeked through the curtain. No one there. But lying on the doorstep was a folded gray hoodie. And inside the hood were small personal items I'd lost months ago. A bracelet, a photo strip, even one of my pens from school. The next day, I brought what I found to school. But Darren wasn't there. He wasn't there the next day either. Or the day after that. No one ever saw him again. Some people said he dropped out. Others whispered he'd finally gone back to hell, jokingly. But I don't think he left. Sometimes, when I walk by the old baseball field at night, I feel eyes on me, like he's still there, waiting for someone to say his name. And every time I hear thunder, I can't help but whisper, "I'm adopted, just in case."
It was one of those winter nights where the snow doesn't just fall, it consumes everything. I remember the sky glowing a dull orange from the city lights behind the clouds. The streets empty, and the air so cold it made the steering wheel burn against my fingers. I wasn't far from my destination, just a short drive through quiet suburban roads. But the storm had other plans. The snow came down heavier with every passing minute, covering the lanes faster than the plows could handle. What should have been a calm 20-minute drive was quickly turning into something else entirely. As I turned down a narrow road lined with pine trees, I saw it. A car stopped dead in the center of the street. Its hazard lights blinked rhythmically through the snow, glowing red and orange like a heartbeat in the dark. Both doors were wide open. No movement, no footprints visible around it. At first, I thought maybe someone had skidded out and gone to find help. But something about it felt wrong. The lights flashing in perfect rhythm, the car too neatly parked, the way the snow covered everything except the doors. It didn't feel like an accident. I slowed down, my tires crunching over the ice. My gut was screaming to keep driving. Still, I stopped. Curiosity always has a way of winning over logic. For a few moments, I just sat there, watching. The hazards kept blinking. Snowflakes spun wildly in the light, falling onto the windshield, melting instantly against the defroster's heat. No movement, no sound, not even the wind. Something about that silence, it wasn't peaceful. It was expectant, like the world was holding its breath. I told myself to wait a minute. Maybe someone would appear. Maybe they just needed help. But that minute stretched on forever, and the longer I stared, the more my instincts clawed at me to leave. Then I saw it. A flicker, a shadow, just at the edge of the road, behind the snowbank. It moved, fast, disappearing as soon as I noticed it. I froze. Every part of me went cold, even though the heater was blasting. That's when I realized how quiet everything was. No engine sounds, no footsteps, just the rhythmic blink, blink, blink of those hazards cutting through the storm. My pulse was racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And then the car moved. Not much, just a tiny shift, like something inside had adjusted its weight. I didn't wait to confirm it. I slammed the horn, long and loud, hoping whatever or whoever was out there would back off. The sound shattered the silence like a gunshot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shadow behind the snowbank ducked down fast. That was all I needed to see. I hit the gas and tore out of there, tires sliding on the icy road, the hazards in my rearview mirror, fading into the white haze. By the time I reached my destination, my heart was still pounding. Inside, everyone laughed about the storm and the bad roads, but I couldn't join in. Something about that car, those open doors, kept replaying in my mind like a broken film reel. Hours later, when the party was winding down, someone turned on the local news for a weather update. That's when my stomach dropped. The anchor was reporting an incident just a few miles from where I'd been earlier. A woman and her teenage son had stopped to help a car left in the middle of the road with its hazards flashing. As they approached, 3 men emerged from the darkness, 2 from behind a snowbank, and 1 from the trunk. They attacked, stole both vehicles, and vanished into the storm. The camera cut to flashing police lights against the snow, tire tracks disappearing into the woods. My chest tightened. I knew that road. I knew that car. If I hadn't left when I did, that could have been me. It's been years since that night, but I still think about it. Whenever the snow starts falling, it's strange how easily trust dies, how one night can turn your instincts into paranoia. Now, When I see someone stranded, I keep driving. I tell myself they'll be fine, that someone else will stop. But deep down, I know why I don't. Because I've seen what hides behind those blinking hazard lights. And some traps aren't meant to save lives, they're meant to take them. I've always believed the ocean could wash away bad memories. Every summer, I'd visit my uncle's old beach house, perched on the cliffs of Maine. The waves below were violent, the wind sharp and cold. Inside, the house smelled of salt and rust. I thought it was age, but the air felt wrong. Heavy, almost alive. The floorboards creaked like breathing. And somewhere in those sounds, I swear the house was trying to warn me not to stay too long. The second night, a storm rolled in. Between thunderclaps, I heard slow, dragging footsteps beneath me. They came from the locked basement door. My uncle once said never to go down there. Unstable foundation, he claimed. But when I pressed my ear to the door, I heard a faint, rhythmic tapping, like gentle knocks from inside. The sound stopped the moment I noticed it. Silence settled, thick and wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling something down there was listening to. Morning came gray and cold. I tried to forget the noise, convincing myself it was pipes or the sea wind. Still, even outside, I felt watched. Near the dunes, patches of sand looked freshly disturbed, though it hadn't rained. No footprints, no animal tracks, just uneven mounds that seemed to sink when the tide crept closer. I told myself I was imagining things, but the air near the house felt heavier, like something was buried beneath it. Breathing slow. By the fourth night, sleep refused to come. Around midnight, the tapping returned, louder. One tap, pause, two taps, almost a signal. I grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs. The basement door was cracked open. The smell hit instantly, rot and iron. I hesitated, then stepped inside. My light flickered across shelves and broken tools. Everything was coated in dust, except one spot in the center floor, where the dirt looked freshly turned. I knew I shouldn't look closer. I did anyway. A wooden box lay half buried in that loose soil, its lid nailed shut and stained dark. The second I crouched, my flashlight died. Total blackness swallowed everything. Then came soft steps behind me, slow, deliberate. I ran, stumbling up the stairs. As I slammed the door, a dull thud echoed below. I stood frozen, hearing only the storm outside. That night, I didn't sleep. Something was awake beneath that floor, and it knew my name, even if I'd never spoken it. At sunrise, I decided to leave. While loading my car, I saw the cliffside had eroded overnight, exposing wood beneath the sand. I walked closer. Another box, half buried, identical to the one in the basement. Its corner held a metal tag engraved with my uncle's initials. I brushed the sand away, and something inside shifted. A faint, wet breath. the ocean wind stopped for a moment, dead silent, and I felt certain whatever was sealed inside could hear me standing there. Weeks later, my uncle passed unexpectedly. When his will was read, the beach house was left to me. I wanted to refuse, but curiosity won. When I returned, the basement was the same, except the disturbed dirt was filled in, and the box was gone. The smell, though, was worse. Following it, I noticed one wall looked newer. Behind the boards, I found dozens of small sealed boxes, stacked neatly, each marked with different initials. On the final board, in faded red paint, "The ocean gives back what I take." I didn't open them. I just ran. I left the house, the keys, everything. To this day, I don't know who those initials belong to. But sometimes at night, when the city wind smells faintly of salt and rust, I hear that soft tapping again, steady, patient, coming from the floorboards beneath my bed, as if the ocean's gift is waiting to return once more.